Hi everyone, singer and music broth volunteer Andrea here, with part 5 of our singing lesson from my bedroom to yours. I hope you're all staying safe and well and hope you've been enjoying the video series. So this is our penultimate episode. Next week I'm going to be answering some of the most popular FAQs about singing, performance and vocal technique. So if you've got a burning question that you'd like to ask, leave me a comment down below and I will try my best to answer it and or recommend answers to them. But please remember, I ain't your doctor. I'm not your doctor, okay? So, today's really about bringing together everything that we've learned in the past videos about daily vocal practice and putting it into the context of a performance day. So, let's say I've got a gig or a competition, a singing competition, or a karaoke party planned later on tonight. What's my routine? So, I wake up and I have my breakfast. Um, Usually what we want to do on gig days is we want to make sure that we time our meals well. So you want to make sure that you eat, that you're well fed, that you're not going to be gargling on stage. But you also want to make sure that you're leaving enough time in between eating and doing your exercises and eating and doing your performance, because the one thing that can really ruin an 80s ballad is when you burp in front of everyone and it tastes like chicken tikka. So make sure that you're timing your meals to when you're going to be practicing and when you're going to be performing, to make sure you leave enough time to digest, because that's important. Another thing that I like to do on gig days, even though I love it, cheese, chocolate, milk, everything, is I try and avoid dairy. Just because I feel sometimes that dairy products can kind of coat your throat, especially things like chocolate. Don't get me wrong, I will sometimes give myself a treat afterwards, but it kind of coats your throat in a weird way and can sometimes affect singing. It doesn't always happen for everyone, and remember, I'm not a doctor, but this is what I like to do personally. Another thing that I want to make sure that I'm doing all day, as well as in the morning, is staying hydrated. Now, the one thing I will say about water in general, water is your friend. Water is going to help you pre-gig, during your vocal warm-up and during your performance. What I will say is, especially if you're going to a venue, try not to get ice cold water or really, really hot water. You want lukewarm water. The reason being, if you imagine like metal and things like that, and different substances are very rigid. They're very rigid when they're cold, and they're more flexible when they're soft. And that's the same with your vocal cords. If they're really cold from drinking like iced water, then it's going to affect your vocal performance. So I like to do that. A lot of performers like to have their kind of concoctions and things like that for miracle cures for their voice if they've maybe had a bit of a rough time. The idea being, obviously, that we don't need to do that because we are doing daily vocal warm up practices. We're not leaving it to the day of the performance to start doing vocal warm ups, because it's going to take a toll on your voice and you're just not going to get the full benefit from it. And trust me, all of these tips that I'm telling you today, I've learned from experience. Going back to the no dairy, I would also maybe recommend no spices because of the burping chicken tikka thing as well. It's not a pretty look or smell. So yeah, dairy and spicy food kind of try and avoid as well, because you don't want an upset tummy when you're trying to focus when you're on stage. But when it comes to kind of concoctions and drinks, if you really are having a bit of a hard day with your throat, but you know that you have to perform, it's kind of hard. You need to really try and take it easy. I find that if you know you've got a little while until your next performance, it's maybe not the next day, but you've got maybe a week and you've maybe coming off of having a cold, things like really good, like kind of high grade Manuka honey, I've found is really, really good. For gargling salt water and things like that can be really good, but again, making sure it's not too warm and staying hydrated, and trying to do really gentle warm-ups every day, because you don't want to damage your voice permanently. We'll get into some of that in the next episode as well. So after I've had my breakfast, and this is usually every day, even if I'm not performing, I'll do yoga. Now, for a few reasons for that. Obviously, it's good because it makes you start to stretch. It kind of wakes up the body a little bit, kind of gets me in my head a little bit into the zone. It gives me a nice kind of 20 minutes, because usually when I'm having a gig day, that's the kind of focus of the day. If I know I'm going to be doing a 3-hour gig and I know there's going to be a lot of times going into preparing for that, so having maybe a kind of 20-minute yoga session gives me that time to really try and focus on not thinking about it. It's hard, and I have to kind of regroup my mind a little bit sometimes halfway through if I'm thinking, what am I going to wear? Oh, should I put that in my set list? oh, like, have I got enough time? I need to make sure that I'm doing everything on time to give me enough time to get there. I really try and focus on just having that 20 minutes to just focus on myself and not on the gig. And another thing that it's really good for is obviously tapping into your breathing. A lot of yoga and mindfulness practice in general. If you didn't kind of want to do the yoga side, you can do mindfulness. Is about learning how to deep breathe. And they kind of talk about breathing into the back of the heart, especially doing poses where you're like where you're folded over halfway. This one, that's a really good one for me anyways, for expanding my lungs and making me feel like I can really feel that breathing into the back of the heart sensation. So next, just like we did in the second video, I will do cardio workout. Now, if I might be doing my jumping jacks, I might be doing my running on the spot, but more often than not, because I know I'll be coming home late, I'll be taking my flatmate's dog out for a run, and we'll go out the back and I'll just run up and down the lane with him a few times and get him to follow me. And it's really good, as I said, we've said before, it's good for getting the heart going, it's good for getting the lungs going, and again, another way to help you focus, you know? And again, after that, I'll do more stretches. I'll do the stretches that we talked about with the head and the shoulders to really help focus on the ones that I know I'm going to be using during performance. And I'll do a little bit of the massage as well. I'll do shoulder massages and things, especially in places like my left shoulder, because I play guitar. I'll usually massage those kind of areas, or the back of my neck, the jaw, underneath the chin especially, to make sure that everything's nice and loose and relaxed for when I go in to do my vocal warm-ups. Another thing that I'll do at this time, which is very useful if you are a singer who wants to play instruments while you sing, or that's what you already do, is I'll do my hand exercises. Now, there's a great guy online called Dr. Levi. Apart from the fact that's a really great name, he's a really cool doctor, and he does hand exercises for gamers. But he does have a couple of videos for performers and musicians, and that's just really good for, again, warming your hands up, warming your wrists up, and your fingers, because like the rest of your body, when you're performing and you're singing, like when you're playing an instrument, you're doing the same thing, you're using your body. So we want to make sure that's all nice and loose and ready. So after we do all that, obviously I'll go into my vocal exercises. Now, as again, I will stress that we want to make sure that we're doing them every single day. We're not just leaving all of our vocal exercises to performance day, because you won't get the full benefit of it. And it's about doing them consistently will help you become that consistent singer, you know? So usually, you know, on a day-to-day basis, I might only do 20 minutes, and we'll go through all of them quite quickly, and I'll kind of just, you know, faff about with it. But definitely on performance day, I will spend like an hour and a half properly taking my time and doing all the exercises, the lip bubbles, the yayas and the ah-ahs, the uh-uhs, or the vocal fry that we talk about, and and I'll spend like an hour and a half doing them. Obviously, when you do these exercises more, you'll understand more about what your range is. So I'll try and go from the kind of bottom of my range to the very deepest I can do, to the very highest I can do. I can probably do a little bit higher than that, but you get the idea. And again, I really want to stress as well that if you're doing, say there's a scenario which I've been in before, where I'm doing a singing competition, I've decided that I want to do a song that kind of challenges me a little and is maybe a little bit out of my range, or has a few notes that are quite hard. Performance day and the daily vocal exercises are not what you're going to be using to try and lift those notes. We're going to maybe talk about that a little bit more in our last video next week. But if you are going to be doing a song that you know is a bit difficult for you, you want to have as much time as possible beforehand to practice that. And we're going to go into that, and as I said, we're going to go into that in the next video a little bit. But when you're doing your vocal exercises, generally, you want to try and stick more or less within your range. And especially if I'm going to be playing a gig, I don't want to tire my voice out in like the first song if I'm going to be doing one really epic song that is really, really hard and out with my range. I'll tend to choose songs, and I'll put them in a key that suits me, that shows off my voice and makes it sound great. And we've talked about that before. Sometimes it doesn't need to be super, super high and reaching these Mariah Carey scale notes that only dogs can hear. Sometimes it's good if your whole song in general is just in a key that you can really work with and you can really make your own, you know? So after I've done the vocal exercise, I'll have a light lunch. Usually I'll tend to not eat until after the gig at that point because I kind of do things in a weird way, and I'll maybe have like a light lunch, but it'll be at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And after that, I'll start to get ready. I'll maybe spend like 20 minutes doing my makeup and kind of having a little me time, getting into it and being like, yeah, I'm having a gig tonight and getting excited. And sometimes a bit, and also a bit nervous, which happens to everybody. That's fine. That just means that you want to do well. It's just making sure that you know how to control those nerves because you know what you're doing because you've been practicing, you know? As I said, usually the night before, I'll have finalised my set list. A good thing that I do as well is I have all my set lists on my phone. So it means that if I go to a venue, which I often do once a month, I know what I played there last time. And although it's not necessarily going to be the same people, I like to try and keep it as fresh as possible. So I have an archive of about 200 songs, covers that I do. And I'm adding to it all the time when people give me new suggestions. And I'll have them in the background just in case anybody requests anything. But generally, I have one notebook and that's got my whole set list, 2 or 3 hours worth or whatever. And it's just, you know, Polly Pockets with bits of paper in them. Some of the songs I already know really well, so I don't need to have the music for them. Some of the songs I just want to kind of have there just in case. But really, it's best if you try and pick songs that you know well, or if you're going to pick a song that you don't know, you want to practice it really well until you do. The reason for that being that, you know, the importance of knowing things like your lyrics for performance, you know, you want to be able to tap into the emotion. What is the songwriter trying to say to an audience when they were writing this song? And what do you want to convey to an audience when you're performing this song? Do you want them to cry? Do you want them to sing along with you? Do you want them to dance? Do you want them to clap? Do you want them to jig? You know, when you are familiar with a song, you're able to go into it and be able to think about those kind of emotions because you're not in your head about what's the next lyric, what's the next chord, you know? You're able to bring confidence to it as well. And you're able to kind of riff off of it as well. So I'm going to be doing a performance at the end of the video of a song that I know really, really well, and I've had in my set list for a good few years now. It's something that people enjoy that I do, and because I've done it so many times, because I'm so familiar with the song, I'm able to create my own kind of riffs on it and do kind of counter melodies and things like that that are different to make it my own. And finally, a good thing when you know your song, you know your lyrics really well, is knowing about your breaths. Now, we talked about before about how breathing is so key. We talked about how if you don't properly exhale and you're breathing all the time during your performance because don't know where to breathe, or you don't know where you're having to sustain your breathing, it's going to be a lot harder for you, and you're not going to be able to take a deeper breath to really support your vocals. So knowing, and it's as well for the phrasing as well, you don't want to be breathing in between every other word, you know, it's not going to sound good. You want to make a phrase sound good. So you want to think about where you're going to be taking your breaths, and also knowing if there's a certain part where you're going to be doing a long phrase that kind of takes a while, if there's a lot of words or a really long sustained note, you want to make sure you're going to prepare yourself for that, so you know to exhale and breathe in and know that you've got enough time to do that. So knowing your timing and for breaths is really important, and the best way to know that is knowing your lyrics. So, last thing that we want to talk about when we talk about our songs, or kind of last two things. First thing we're going to talk about is what song you're going to sing. So, it's really important in a lot of ways, your song choice, because it's going to determine what people think of what your kind of singing is as a brand. It's going to decide how people react to it. Is it going to be a slow song that people are going to like be sad to, or like as we said, or is it going to be a song that you want to make people dance to? Especially if you're in the gigging circuit, you always want to, if you're going to be performing in a venue you've never performed in before, you always want to make sure you go there beforehand at least once. Try and go on a night where someone else is performing and watch the audience, see what songs they enjoy, see what the person there is doing. Are they doing something that you don't do? Or is there something that you can pick up from them? Another great trick that I've learned in a way is a little bit sneaky, but it's good. If you are going to a venue, check and see if they have a jukebox, because most modern digital jukeboxes will have a tab somewhere on the homepage where you can see what songs are most played on that jukebox in that venue. And this has been invaluable information for me because, and it's a little bit sneaky, but the idea is you want the audience to be on your side and you want to be able to go there knowing that you're performing songs that they like. And it's not always going to be important, and sometimes it's more important for you to, be your authentic self, and you have a brand and there's specific songs that you do. But at the end of the day, you always want to give a nod. You can't do a gig and not give a nod to the audience that are there, because that's where you're going to get a lot of your energy from as a performer, is how the audience is reacting mostly positively to what you're doing. So knowing a couple of songs that they really like, to put them in your set list, or by the same artist, maybe not the exact same song, but you want to do like the same artist. And the other thing is, you'll find some surprising ones as well. If you look at the jukebox, sometimes you'll go into a pub that maybe has more kind of traditional or folk or country, and it's a really recent pop hit as one of the top songs, because everybody's just been listening to it for whatever reason, and they're on the radio or whatever. So you want to pick up on that and really capitalize on that. Another thing you want to maybe think, and lastly, the thing you want to maybe think about with your songs is knowing how you're going to segue. So that kind of comes into play when you're creating your set list, knowing how to create a nice journey for your audience to go on. You don't want all the songs when you first go on to be really slow, and you don't want all the songs that you're at the end to be really slow. You want to really think about how you want, what journey you want to take your audience in. Like, is it going to be a travel through time? Are you going to start in the 50s and go to now? Or are you going to kind of cross through different genres with specific songs that you think match both? I kind of tend to do that quite a lot. One thing I tend to do for some reason is I always have a Scottish pop section where I do Deacon Blue and Simple Minds and things like that. So yeah, it's really good. And knowing a little bit of your patter, there's a lot to be said about whether stage presence is something that's innate or something that's learned. But I personally have been told that I had quite good patter on stage, and a lot of the stuff that I've learned to say on stage is stuff that I have learned to say on stage. A good example is when I'm doing a particular song, I'll always introduce it as a song from one of my favourite movies, and it's one that took most of the film budget. Took up most of the film budget just to get the rights to it, and the song is Stuck in the Middle with You. The film's obviously Reservoir Dogs, but it's a nice little fact, and people kind of go, huh. Or you can give people clues sometimes to what you're going to do. And I remember one pub going crazy one night trying to figure out what they were going to what I was going to do, because I was talking about being a Scottish singer and talking about being ginger and things like that, and they couldn't work out that I was talking about Annie Lennox. But at the end they were all like, So knowing some of your pattern, knowing how you're going to address your audience can always help, and also knowing when in your set you're going to talk about where people can find you, what your name is, what you are on social media, whether you're available for another gig, when you've got a next gig coming up. Those are important things to mention when you're performing, because every performance is a chance for more people to hear about you. Last other thing that we're going to talk about before we actually get to the venue is enunciation. Now, I've had a lot of practice with this. I went to a Catholic school, and there was a lot of, and my mother was always very strict about the fact I said butter and bottle for some reason. But a really good way for you to work on your enunciation, we've got a wee trick here. You really use anything. You can use a cork, you can use, what I've got here is like a lipstick, a little kind of something this kind of shape and size that you basically pop in your mouth. And the reason that we talk about enunciation is it's really important. Obviously there's some really famous songs out there, like Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana is a really good example where you really can't hear what people are saying. But especially with specific types of songs like rap or things like comedy songs, enunciation is key, because you want to, especially when you're speaking in between your songs, and also when you're performing, you want to make sure that people are able to hear what you're singing. So a really great trick to do with that is, if we put something like this in our mouths, you can see that it really helps you to over enunciate all of your words. So even though this is obstructing my tongue and my lips from reaching, I'm still over exaggerating this so that you can understand me. Yes? So that's a really good trick that you can use if it's something that you're worried about, enunciation, because as I said, it's really important for particular genres. So we've done all of our exercises, we know what our set list is, we're ready, we're glammed, we're glowed up, we're ready to go to the venue. Now, I personally, because I've got equipment that I need to bring with me. I like to get to the venue about an hour and a half at least beforehand. Usually I'll have to order a taxi or have somebody to drive me because I don't drive. And I want to make sure I've got enough time to load in and load out. I also want to make sure when I go to a new venue, or even one that I've gone to before, that I go in and I see the manager, whoever it was that booked me, and say, "Hi, I'm Andrea. Nice to see you again," or "Nice to meet you. I'm going to be performing tonight." Make sure that I've got myself in, ready to set up. Take time to, if you're setting up your own equipment, to make sure that you are giving yourself enough space. Sometimes that you can, because you don't want to take up space from patrons, you kind of cramp yourself into a little corner where you almost can't get out of. Make sure whether you're sitting or whether you're standing that you're going to be able to have good posture. So making sure that your mic stand is the right height, making sure that if you've got a music stand like me with you, that it's at the right level for you to be able to see in the lighting that you're going to be using. And you also want to maybe talk to a couple of the patrons who are right in front of you, because they are going to be the ones who are like right in front of you when you're playing, or the ones that are closest to you, are going to be the ones that you can see if they're not digging what you're given, you know? So it's a good idea to say, "Hey, my name's Andrea, I'm going to be doing a few songs for you tonight. Is there any kind of stuff that you particularly like?" I know some musicians are really not in favour of doing requests. I kind of get around that, but I'll usually ask if people have got requests for artists, because usually I'll have something in there or something adjacent. Or you can ask if there's particular genres that people like. Again, it's a good way to get kind of feedback on what you should be adding to your set list, especially if you want to get booked somewhere again. And really just making friends. Say, "Oh, don't worry, we're going to be putting these away from you." Things like your speakers, you want to make sure that they're in front of you and not behind you, because that will create feedback, that noise that you sometimes hear when people are too close to a microphone. Make sure that speakers are kind of in front of you. Make sure that it's going to be accessible to everybody, so that your speakers are high enough that the sound's going to carry to the backs of the room. Make sure you spend some time doing some sound checks. Make sure your instrument, if you've got one, is going to be tuned up. Yeah, and you're getting yourself ready to go. Make sure that you've ordered your lukewarm water, or just water, no ice, and let it warm up a little bit. When I tend to do a 3-hour show, I tend to go through like 4 or 5 pints of water, just because I feel like energetic. And the last thing I'll mention before we talk about actually being on stage, is a personal thing of mine. It's not something that I understand why other people do it. I would try, even if you're just going to a karaoke night with your friends, to not drink, and certainly not to over drink before a performance. Now, the reason I say that, when I was a lot younger, and I sometimes would go to karaoke at the garage, I used to get really drunk and thought, "Oh, it's great, it'll make my performance better," because I was quite shy. The thing is that even though you might be able to think that you sound smoother, and you might think that you can reach notes that you can't, that's because you can't feel the damage that it's doing if you're pushing your voice too much and you've not done properly warmed it up, you know? And it's the same, like, you might think that you sound great, but a lot of times you don't ever sound as great as you think that you do. And really, and I get it, if you've done your song and you want to like go and party and have fun, then that's great. But I would always just, let yourself learn how to be confident. I think it's a really great skill to have, to learn how to just be confident without having to use other things around you. It's something that I've had to learn, because being a kind of regular performer, I couldn't really afford to be drinking that many nights a week every time I was performing, because it just wasn't practical. It's not a good use of like the money that I was making at my gigs. And it's really nice, people will come up to me during a gig saying, "Can I get you a drink?" And I'll either say, "Thank you, could you get me some water?" Or sometimes I'll say, "Yes, I'll take a drink, but can I take it after the end of the show? I don't want anything just now, thank you very much." For me, it's just, I know for some people it's they just say, I just have one drink before I go on, just to set the edge off. That's fine. For me personally, I prefer to just not drink, and to try and really focus on learning how to calm myself down and how to be confident without having to do that, because I'll go on stage, I'll be nervous, but I'll be learning how to conquer that myself. So we've set up, we're ready, we're hydrated, we're ready to go, and you're going to start performing. So one of the things that we obviously want to do while we're performing, in between songs, make sure that you're staying tuned with your instrument. Check yourself in performance. If you feel like you're getting yourself a bit breathless, take a second, exhale and inhale again. Make sure you're checking for tension in your shoulders, tension in your jaw. A big thing that we also do, again, is that where we're trying to reach higher notes. If you're trying da 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 da, you're trying to almost as if you're trying to reach up high. Again, it's the same thing as when it's cold, it'll just make your vocal cords more stiff. Obviously thinking about your posture, especially if you're doing one of those sitted down gigs that you're not and you're looking maybe at music, you're not kind of looking down and crouching over, because good posture is going to give you better breathing, it's going to give you better support. And obviously you can check for the audience reactions. During the break you can say, you know, come up to me and tell me if there's a particular song that you like or whatever. But at the end of the day, the best way to get an audience on your side is just by being confident. And that's where we're going to go into. So obviously the biggest thing that people think about when they think about singing, especially like on a stage or in that kind of context, is stage presence. So stage presence is confidence when you're on stage, being able to command attention. And as I said earlier, I think some of it is ingrained in you. It's something that you're born with. It's something that you want to do. You want to show people. You want people to look at you a little bit. And it's a little bit of practice as well. Not everybody's going to be born with a lot of confidence in themselves. For me, being able to be confident in singing has helped translate to other parts of my life where I maybe wasn't as confident. And I think if I could just be the way I am when I'm singing and bring that kind of attitude with me, that'll help me. But really, a lot of stage presence and confidence comes from practice, and it comes from spending that time honing your craft and spending time in your craft and honing your skills. So being able to do vocal warm-ups every day, being able to spend enough time to properly warm your voice up and spend time really wanting to learn how to sing properly gives you that effortless kind of singing. You're not straining all the time. If you're doing vocal warm-ups, then you're not straining all the time to reach notes in your songs. If you're practicing all the time, then you know the lyrics to the songs, you know what's coming next. And all that kind of knowledge and that confidence will show in your performance. So really, yeah, it's a kind of old adage, but practice really does make you more confident. You know that you can effortlessly reach the notes. You know that you can riff on top of it and you can make a song your own. And when you do all these things, you don't, as I said before, you don't think about in your own head what's next or what's that person doing. You can just focus on experiencing what singing really is and what it's supposed to be, which is fun. You know, singing is supposed to be fun, and you're able to embody that when you've got that confidence that you've practiced and you're well prepared and you're well rehearsed and you know what you're doing. A lot of people say to me that they wish they could sing. They come up to me at the end of a show like, I wish I could sing. I think everybody can sing. I do. I do. And I think everyone should sing. I genuinely do. The voice is an amazing, beautiful instrument that we were all born with. Like, we were all born with this ability. And whether you're, you know, a professional or whether you want to sing for a career or you just want to be able to belt out a tune in your shower without the neighbour complaining, you know, I think that having some of these lessons that we've given here today will hopefully give you that little bit of confidence next time you go out to sing. Because at the end of the day, when you feel prepared, you feel confident. When you feel confident, you're able to enjoy yourself. And when you're enjoying what you're doing, and you're enjoying yourself and you're enjoying your singing, then the world is going to sing with you, no matter what your skill level is. You know, singing is something that I have loved for so long. It brings me so much joy, and I just think that it should be able to bring everyone joy, because it doesn't matter what type of singer you are, whether you think you're a good singer, whether you think you're a bad singer. It's about confidence, and it's about enjoying what you're doing. And essentially, stage presence is that. It's about people out there in the audience looking and seeing that you're enjoying yourself. And a lot of that comes from practice and consistency with your practice, and yeah, coming doing things like your exercises and taking care of your voice. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I know it's not quite in the same structure as we have been doing, but hopefully you've gotten a couple of tips and tricks to help you with your next performance. Now, as I said earlier in the video, next week we're going to be tackling a few different questions that I'm sure you all have. If you have any particular, please comment them below. Make sure that you're subscribed to Music Broth on Facebook and Instagram. You can follow me at Andrea Music on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And I think we're going to be finishing off with a little performance, a little self-indulgent performance if you don't mind. I'm going to be performing a song that is part of my set list. It's usually my first song that I perform, especially if I'm going to a new place, because it gets everyone on their side, on my side, and it's really just a fun song, and I've been able to kind of make it my own while staying kind of true to the kind of attitude and the emotions of the original. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week for the last episode of our singing lessons from my bedroom to yours. What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it. All I'm asking is for a little respect. We get love, and even just a little respect. We get love. I ain't gonna do it wrong. No, I ain't gonna do it wrong, 'cause I don't want to. All I need you to do is respect. We get love, and even just a little respect. We get love. I will bet to give you all my money. All I'm asking for in return, honey, give me my profits. Oh, respect, we get love, and even just a little respect. We get love. Kisses are sweeter than honey, and guess what? So is my money. All I need you to do for me is give respect, me and love, and maybe just a little respect. We get love, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take care, T-C. Oh, talk to me. And maybe just a little respect. We get love. We get love, we get love, we get love, we get love, we get ho ho ho, ho ho ho, ho ho ho, respect. Thank you so much. I'm Andrea, a music broth volunteer and singer, and we'll see you next week. Bye.